want to begin this video by showing you these two antennas on the bench. And after a few moments here, you'll quickly see why they can be interchangeable with very minor modification to the wiring. This is an early W123 power antenna for the sedans and the coupes. This is a later. This showed up about 1980-81. And if you look closely, the housings are the same, the motor drive mechanisms are all the same, the mast heights are the same. The only difference is in this wiring plug. Notice on the early 123, the wiring plug is on the top of the motor housing assembly. So when you look at these, you say, well, this is going to work because the plug isn't going to reach up here, this plug isn't going to reach down there. Okay, let me explain. If you put a later model antenna in the early W123, you just unhook it here and route the plug up and plug it in up top. But if you put an early, once again, this is an early W123, and these antennas tend to be more common. You'll find these used more readily than you will the later W123s. And so it is with the stock that I have on hand, and that's why I'm doing this video. So you'll be able to interchange these and still get an original Hirschmann power antenna. And so if you try to put this early W123 power antenna with the plug at the top in a later model, this plug down here isn't going to reach all the way up there unless you get a box knife and follow along as I take you in the car and show you how easy this is. Well, look what's going to happen. If I put this up into here like this, how in the world am I going to get this plug up to the top there where I can plug it into this antenna? And what I'm going to do is very carefully cut back this cover on the wiring harness. Okay, here's the plug in question. And we've got a zip tie here. A lot of these original zip ties are reusable if you know how to take them apart. You can just get a pair of pliers and grab a hold of that, and then you can bend it back and pull the zip tie out like that. So you can actually reuse these if you want. You can cut them and use different zip ties. Okay, we'll pull this wire out of the way. What I want to do now is cut this cover off the wiring harness all the way up to about where the sunroof motor is. So it will come straight across to the top of the replacement antenna. So what I do is I just cut very lightly. I don't even cut completely through, because if you just mark it, it's going to tear. That's going to be a little tough right there. I come down to the end here, try not to cut all the way through, but I'll cut all the way through right at the tip. That's open. And you can see here on some of these, they have it like double wrapped. They've got it wrapped around here and then wrapped around there, so you may have to make two cuts in order to get these wires pulled out. So I'm going to have to turn this sideways and do another careful cut right here. Okay, now you can see you can only get it this high with this ground wire right here. So I'm going to cut the ground wire and just extend this ground wire with a couple of butt connectors. All right. Now I can start working this up. Okay, see what I did is by just barely nicking this cover, I was able to pull this up and break it. All right, now let's see. Oh yeah, I'm going to have plenty. So if you're right here at this location, you don't have to go all the way up, but right here at this location is far enough to get this plug over here and get at the antenna. Now I'm going to get some wire and a couple butt connectors, extend this so it comes down here and goes all the way down there, And then I'll get some electrical tape and rewrap this. Here's the wiring modification completed. I did take about 11-12 inches of brown wire with a couple of red butt connectors, and I extended this ground wire for the plug, ran it up through here and down here, and then you can see I used electrical tape, and I wrapped this harness, and then I wrapped this harness. So, you know, an expert could look in here and see that something's been done, but most people aren't going to even notice. So now let's install the antenna. We're not quite done yet. We still have to deal with this plug right here on top of the antenna housing. You're going to get to see now the real reason why they had to move the plug down here on the later models. It has to do with the sunroof motor. When they changed the sunroof motor around 1980 to a round motor, the motor extends further out. And if I try to put this antenna in here, the plug comes up and hits the bottom right there of the motor. So what we're going to do is disconnect that nut right there, and we're going to try to swing this plug over in front of the housing, the cover, and see if we can get this plugged in and make this work, okay? Now let's see if we can get this up in here. Just barely clears. And now you can take the plug and plug it in just like this. You see with this metal bracket on, it really limits the amount you could bend this over. Also might cause a little interference, so you need to take this off. You can just turn it back and slide it. You can see which way you have to slide it off of there. Now, with that bracket removed, I can bend this over and come right down on top the cover of the antenna. And you want this wire to wrap close around the mast because that sunroof motor is going to end up right in this area. All right, so the wire plug is ready. I've removed the spacer and the seal from the other antenna, and I'm going to turn it so the slope is going outward like that. Next thing I'm going to do is install the antenna lead from the radio, because it's much easier to do it like this than try to do it with it up in place. All right, now I'm going to move it up into the hole, and I'm just going to put the grommet, and I'm going to start the top here with a few threads just so it's not dropping down. Okay, at that point I can let go and I can line up this bottom hole. You may have to bend the bracket a little bit to get the screw to line up. Okay, there we go. And I'm just going to snug this down. I'm not going to tighten it until I tighten that top nut for the fender mount hardware. This will allow this to move up and down until I get the final tightness up above. Now, with the plug right here, you can plug in your antenna. Now, if you're concerned, I'm going to go ahead and put a zip tie here. That'll keep that there, and I'll put another zip tie down here. But before I wrap everything up, let's go ahead and see if the antenna works. If the antenna works, and then I'll go ahead and tighten everything up. I'll zip tie these wires down and reinstall the inner fender panel. I'll get over here and turn the key on and then turn the radio on. There goes the antenna. All the way up. Let's turn the radio off. And the antenna is coming all the way down. Look at that. All right, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Now you know you can install those early W123 antennas in your later model sedans and coupes that have the round sunroof motor. These original metal Hirschmann antennas are getting harder and harder to find. I highly recommend, if you have a keeper, W123 sedan or coupe, that you maybe pick up one of these. I have about 5 or 6 of these left as of filming of this video that I've completely taken apart and refurbished. And I will include, at no extra charge, because I know some of you won't have this handy, I'm going to include with these antennas a couple of butt connectors and about 12 inches of brown or black wire. So you can extend the ground wire if you decide to put one of these in your later model W123.